rock apes. The rock apes were described to be very hairy, Sasquatch-like humanoids. They were said to be from about 3 to 7 feet tall, so compared to the United States Sasquatch, they aren't that tall. They were very muscular, and then a lot of them had protruding stomachs. Their hair color ranges from red, orange, brown, to even black in color, covering everything except for their knees, soles of their feet, hands, and face. According to Thai and Vid people, they were also known as the forest people. They live deep in the jungles, they don't shy away from human contact at all, and they were even known to sit beside villagers and make fires, so they do have some intelligence. Some of the most fascinating stories came after the Vietnam War, where American GI soldiers told their stories after returning home of their encounters with these creatures. And to make matter even crazier, these soldiers didn't just come out and say, hey, yeah, these creatures really do exist. They came out and said, we actually had a gunfight and a battle with these creatures. So a group of military personnel was actually found dead, torn from limb to limb after supposedly engaging in this rock-throwing battle with these creatures. It even got so bad to the point where there was a hill in Vietnam that was called Monkey Mountain because there's just so much rock ape sightings around that hill.
The rainforests of Asia harbor many stories of strange encounters. 1,000 miles north of Malaysia, deep in the jungles of Laos, exists what many believe is a relative of America's legendary Bigfoot. The year was 1966. America's at war with Vietnam. For the first time ever, U.S. soldiers are faced with full-scale jungle warfare. As military missions take forces deep into the heart of the Indo-Chinese forest, extraordinary stories begin to filter back from the field. Stories about encounters with strange creatures. As a young soldier in Vietnam in 1969, veteran Tom Jacobs was often sent on reconnaissance missions into the thick jungle. One day, though, he witnessed something he will never forget.
We really didn't know what it was. It sounded like the North Vietnamese were attacking us with tanks.
A band of large primates began throwing rocks at his platoon.
I had heard that there had been previous problems with what we called rock apes. And in fact, at one point, a band of them threw one Marine off the rock pile. And so we were wary of them, without a doubt.
What Sergeant Jacobs had seen may have been any one of a number of primate species which inhabit the Indo-Chinese forest. But several times, he says, they came face to face with a creature that was entirely different.
This animal was stockier. He was of darker color, a lot more muscular. This different creature would, early in the morning, burst out of the jungle into a clearing and just rail at us, just yell and scream and shake his fists, and it was very human behavior, and it was real obvious that he took exception to our presence there.
During the Vietnam War, it wasn't only American soldiers who had run-ins with what appeared to be a type of Bigfoot. On the North Vietnamese side, there were also bizarre reports of a strange creature attacking soldiers in the jungle.
Before all the reports and all the sightings about the rock apes that came out after the Vietnam War, during bedtime, my dad would always tell us these stories about these Marlu ape-like creatures. They would stand outside of somebody's house, or they would stand nearby trails where people would walk by, especially deep in the woods, because most of the gardens are 2 to 3 hours away from where people live. So a lot of times these villagers would take these small little trails to go to the garden, and that's where these Marlu would sit there and just wait for villagers to walk by. What they would do is they'll grab them right in the arms, look up to the skies, and just stares and just laughs and just kind of wait to see if there's any signs saying that they can't eat this person. Most of the time, the stories are told that if there was a lightning or a thundercloud coming through, they will let that person go and they just kind of disappear back into the woods. But if they didn't see any signs of thunderstorm or any storm coming through, they will eat them right then and there. This happened so much to the point where the villagers have to come out with a solution. What they did was they came out with these bamboo sleeves that they will wear every single time when they come out of the house or when they're walking to their gardens, because these bamboo sleeve acts like a escaping device where they could just slip out of it easily and start running for their lives. It is said that if you are being chased by these Malu or rock apes, since they have locked knees, you want to run in a zigzag pattern through the woods or run uphill. If you run downhill, you're pretty much dead. And growing up, hearing all these stories, I thought it was just folklores or bedtime stories, until the accounts of rock apes came out after the Vietnam War. The craziest thing about this is the GIs went into Vietnam War thinking that they're just going to be fighting the Viet Congs and the Red Laos, but they ended up fighting three enemies, which one of them were rock apes. And if you don't believe me, just look up the rock ape encounters or just watch the documentary about the rock apes and comb through the comments. There's so much accounts of people's grandfathers or grandparents telling them about encounters with the rock apes. It makes you wonder why between 1965 and 1975, why the United States dropped more than 7.5 million tons of bombs in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia alone. Pretty much double the amount they dropped in Europe and Asia during World War II. I understand that the Viet Cong had a lot of tunnels that they dig throughout the jungles as surprise attacks and booby traps. Just think about that. 7.5 million tons of bombs just dropped in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia alone. Were they trying to get rid of something else? I don't know. Imagine going to battle thinking you're going to be fighting another human, but ended up running upon monsters. If you ask me, that makes a perfect Hollywood movie. The idea of Bigfoot and rock apes attacking and eating humans isn't a fairy tale. Those of you who have been following David Paulides' Missing 411 knows that a lot of these strange cases of people going missing in national forests has a lot of correlation with Bigfoot sightings. To those of you who don't know who David Paulides is or the Missing 411 cases, David Paulides is a former police officer who is now an investigator and a writer known for primarily his self-published book dedicated to proving the reality of Bigfoot. That is what he did back then, but now dedicates his time to pretty much research these missing cases of people that have gone missing in national forests, parks, or around the world. In his Missing 411 books, he doesn't come out and say Bigfoot did it, but the more you read and the more you listen to these stories, there's a lot of resemblance of eyewitness accounts seeing these creatures carrying little kids and running them off through the woods. There's even these cases where search and rescue teams have found these kids weeks later and have pretty much asked them, like, where were you this whole time? And then these kids will come out and say, the fuzzy man took care of me, or a bear man took care of me, and they were fed berries and stuff like that. And it's just a interesting read, and it just blows your mind once you get into the rabbit hole with the Missing 411 series. But these were the cases where the kids or the person was found. Majority of the time, those people who go missing are never recovered, or else, they were found 1 or 2 years later and they have already passed away. So, highly recommend for anybody who likes strange and weird stuff. But my take on it is I started reading all this stuff and just pretty much